the kingdom of God is near to you, the kingdom of God is near, there's a sense in which Christ is active in our world and present in our world. And sometimes we do get those flashes of moments of where the kingdom of God is near, and we can affirm that, and we can bless that, and we can work with that. The other point is that sometimes we actually encounter pain and suffering and evil, and actually that is the work, that is activity that Christ is engaged in. So if you think through the kind of, not just Christ's earthly ministry, but his death and resurrection, that actually the encountering of pain and suffering is as much a place to meet Christ, in the horror of suffering, in the standing up to suffering. And others might join with us on that. So listening to citizens, if you're engaged with others in affronting things that are clearly evil, to want of a better description, then actually I do believe we learn to meet Christ in those moments. But the critical judgment of the church is vital and important to get that right. Thank you.
I know a town in Worcestershire where there are, over the weekend particularly, ecumenical street pastors. What is your take on that?
I think Street Pastors is a really good project. I was one of the pictures up there of the project. I think this is interesting in that it's partly this idea of representing. I put those in the community roles tags. It's actually an organised activity of the church representing who we are as a church to people in our towns and cities, providing that kind of care, providing that attention, providing that witness. So I think Street Pastors is a really good initiative. And the schools pastors as well, which I've been involved in previous roles. I think what's interesting about it is one of the dangers with things like street pastors is we can think that is the place where we do our Christian stuff. And it's easier because you have a jacket on with fluorescent on the back in the same way as you have a collar on. And that makes the representative role easier. And actually, that's not a bad thing in some respects. So, but what we've got to recognise is that we call it the gravitational pull of the church. That things like street pastors is part of what we want people to be called and enabled to do. But it's much harder to be a street pastor as a neighbour than it is with a jacket. Out and about. So I think it's a really good thing, but we learn two things from it. We learn that London run this ambassadors program, which I think is a good thing. But also what that has done is that gives a little bit of a label that helps people think, well, I'm an ambassador. They might have a little badge that might say ambassador. And someone says, what's that badge mean? Oh, it's a thing from our church. What does it mean? Oh, it just means, we want to talk about, how Christ calls us into the jobs and play. It gives you a reason. It's a really good thing. We need those things, but it's a sign for me, as in of the conditions that we live in terms of representational life. Two more, and then we're done and move on.
John Clark, Lichfield.
Hello, John.
Is this working?
No.
No.
You referred. Try this one. Try this one. Yes, is that better? That's it, yes. John Clark, Lichfield. You referred to the report All Are Called, and by the time you get in a few pages, you read the remarkable sentence there that says a large number of lay people would rather not be called, but would rather be sleeping partners in their Father's business. How do you think it is that we've got to that state? Why is it? And what can we do about it?
Okay, we'll come to the path. We'll move to the path with what do we do about it. How have we got to that state? Is partly this sense of as we've moved through these various forms of secularism, we've not been able to engage with large groups of people. So we've not been able to engage with what does it mean? What does it mean to be a working person? So we had a huge push on kind of industrial mission, industrial chaplaincies to try and engage with people in everyday life, and it's been a real struggle for us to do that. So one of the things is that we've kind of restricted kind of the types of people what people are interested in. So if you're interested in singing, if you're interested in bells, if you're interested in some of the trappings of churches, you might come to church because of that. But that kind of resonance with this is really important for my everyday life is harder to get. I mean, not impossible. So we have lots of people for whom they've just not got that. They haven't caught on to that. And then we've got others who actually want to protect that sacred space of the church. They've grown to love it, and actually being a backseat passenger in that is not being an active participant. People go and enjoy it, otherwise it's just stop coming, full stop. So I think there's what we're trying to do is we're trying to say that we have to build in a bigger sense of vision for what being the church is, but we need to be aware that we've got different people that we're talking to. So you might have some churches that are church planting all over the place and growing. And it might be easier to talk about the bigger vision there. And other churches in other places, urban and rural, where actually it's much harder to begin to articulate what does it mean to be a vision of the church. But we have to start in those places where those places are. And the reality is that we live in a world that tells us we don't need God in our lives. And for a lot of people, their lives are perfectly fine without God in their lives. And a lot of those people are in our churches. So we also have to be thinking, well, what's going to engage with that? What forms of discipleship will also engage in that? So it's a really important question, and we'll come to what I call the practice of waking up to God as one of the things that we're trying to get people to do in a moment. Last question, then we'll move on to the practical things.
Julian Hartley. No, you don't want to hear me. Is this working now? Julian Hartley, Lee Deanery, Manchester. I'm a glass half full person, but I have a feeling I want to play the glass half empty card on this, because I eat, sleep, breathe, live the enablement and setting all God's people free. And I've been doing it for more decades than I care to admit that I've lived. 38 years ago, I was here in the old building that existed before this as part of the Bishop of Liverpool's lay training team, running the annual diocesan conference for the laity, trying to set God's people free then. I was surprised to be ordained, but I was ordained in the critical year for one of your reports, All God's People, 1985. I was a curate right in the midst of that. We had that kind of report, its analysis, it's what we must do about it. We were doing it with a verve. 30 years of ordained ministry later, I'm back in the same place, hearing another report saying the same things, having another initiative at trying to do the same things, hearing that actually we've been saying and trying this since 1947 or earlier. What makes me think that I need another report to tell me the same things I've already known? What needs me to think that I need another initiative to tell me what I've got to do about it when we couldn't get the first report and the first initiative to work? Can't I go back to that and say, I just need that first thing to work, and am I really going to have any chance of getting this one to work after such a history that you've painted of, my glass is half full. I have done a lot of later development, and I love it, and I've seen the fruit of it, and yet we're still saying there's the problem. Yeah. And I fear my glass might be half empty, or plenty of other people seeing it's half empty saying, we've seen this before, we've heard this before, we've had this initiative. As an area dean, we're doing mission action planning again. We've seen this before, we've had this before. Why do we want to bother again? Yeah. The glass half empty kind of area dean's response. How do I deal with that?
There's some bottles there, so I'd top your glass up. That's a very important point. I wanted to do that kind of theology bit because I know that you're trying to get Elaine Graham to come, who would have done it much better. But to give that kind of general thing about it, but I wasn't trying to make it sound desperate. But what I was wanting to do is to say we are in effect reprising the same report over and over again. That is effectively what we're doing. Okay, what's different this time is I think we've realised that